I know we normally start our conferences at 9 a.m. I learned last night it was 8 a.m. So thank you for being here, all of you on time. And for those of you who were able to participate yesterday, thank you for the positive feedbacks about the focus of our breakout sessions yesterday. I want to thank Brett with the Manufacturers Association and all the work that went into the panels. I want to acknowledge the partnership that we have had with the Alliance for Innovation and the Polish delegation that was here yesterday. Many of you are here this morning, and thank everybody for their participation yesterday. We've had a significant opportunity in Virginia to benefit from imports and exports. We have the greatest assets on the East Coast with our two international ports, Dulles Airport and the Port of Virginia. We've been very fortunate with our interstate, and our rail companies are continuing to grow and prosper. So we have the infrastructure to help products move in and out of the Commonwealth of Virginia. One of the things that we did at the Chamber Foundation during 2014, we were still climbing out of the recession, and we wanted to ask the question, how much of Virginia's economy is a result of exports coming through our ports and going out in other ways. And the results of our study were that from 2009 to 2014, 30% of the job creation was a result of exports in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we then broke that study down by region and by county. And we found that while the impact for the larger municipal areas was in the high single digits, it's really the rural counties and the rural parts of the Commonwealth that have a higher percentage of domestic production as a result of exports. And I've met many of you from around the Commonwealth of Virginia today, many from large metropolitan areas, but many of you are also from the Valley and Southwest Virginia. And I'm just so pleased that all of you could be here today and last night to participate. I want to just recognize our co-hosts. I'd like to thank a couple of sponsors and then have our chair come up and give a greeting before we dive into some of the more formal recognitions and our speakers this morning. But we have a fantastic program for you. I want you to turn your attention to your program. I hope everyone has one in front of them. And I want to thank our presenting sponsor. I'll name a few of these and ask you recognition at the end. I've already mentioned the Polish American Foundation Alliance, Dr. Michael Czikowy. I want to thank the Port of Virginia, John Reinhardt and Kathy Vick. I'd like to thank, and I'll recognize our lunch sponsor, T-Mike, a little bit later, and our media sponsor, Bernie Niemeyer from Virginia Business Magazine. And then our gold sponsors, Canon, Omega, Protein, Purdue, Smithfield, and our silver sponsors, Fulton International Group, Universal, and Virginia International Gateway. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a round of applause. Thanks for their investment to pay for our program today. Many of you were able to participate in the governor's reception last night at the mansion. I won't take any credit for it, but it was Chamber of Commerce weather. I heard that several times last night, and I thank you all for participating. And I'll recognize Governor Northam at lunch today and thank him and the First Lady for hosting us. But that reception last night was paid for by CenterPoint. CenterPoint Properties is a significant investment, over $145 million in the Hampton Roads region. They are the host of many manufacturing and distribution sites, and CenterPoint Manufacturing and Logistics Center is one of only a few Tier 4 and Tier 5 industrial parks in Virginia. And I want to thank Tony Beck. Please join me in thanking CenterPoint for their hosting us last night. I also will be recognizing throughout today people from the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. I want to thank Virginia Maritime Association and the Propeller Club. And I mentioned Brett with the Manufacturers Association, and I'll be recognizing them throughout the day. All of them are co-hosts. Many of you are members of theirs. For the purposes of bringing us a greeting this morning, I want to say I have the privilege each year, and this is I'm in my 8.5 years now as president of the State Chamber, and we've grown our membership to 26,000 members. We're the largest membership organization in Virginia, representing businesses all across the Commonwealth. and being a real advocate for businesses. We don't get involved in campaigns and we don't endorse candidates, but we do endorse ideas. And we believe ideas have power, and we can, through the force of the business community, speak to those in public policy and help shape public policy. And we've had about a 95% success rate in the General Assembly over the last 7.5 years. We are actually issuing report cards for the General Assembly and holding them up as pro-business representatives. I will tell you, our report card's coming out next week for those board members. There are some members of the General Assembly this year did not rise to the level of A's. We've got a challenging mix of people in the General Assembly as a result of last year's election. We'll be talking more to our board about that, but it means this. The business community now has to be more vigilant than ever in making their voice heard. I think we really are at a turning point when it means the business community's activities in public policy. And support your local chamber, support the state chamber, because we are your voice for business to those people who make public policy. And we're led by a board of directors. I'm pleased this year that I've had the privilege of working closely with Suzy Kelly. She's the CEO of Jo-Kell Inc. She chairs the board of directors. And Jo-Kell is a woman-owned small business specializing in high-tech industrial information, automotive products and systems and engineering, offices in Chesapeake and Jacksonville and San Diego. And she's been a real public servant. She served 8 years on the city council for Chesapeake, and she's a real leader in her community and throughout the Commonwealth and a real public servant. Please join me in welcoming our chair, Suzy Kelly.
Thank you, Barry, and welcome to all of you. I know it's an earlier start this morning, and when Barry said we're going to start in 1 minute, the room just went silent. I was so amazed. I said, maybe that's what we should do every time, is start at 8 o'clock and get that silence going early. But I am honored to serve as your chair of the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. This is such a great organization. Under Barry's leadership, I serve along with a host of leaders throughout the whole Commonwealth of Virginia. And the board is so good to have strong leadership. That's what I was talking to Governor Allen just a few minutes ago, and he was saying that basically if you have the right leadership and the right policies, you've got success. And I think the Virginia Chamber has been very blessed to have great leadership. I'd like to recognize the board members that are here today, and if you would stand when I call your name, I'd appreciate that. Monty Deal with Omega Protein. Dick DuVal, Westchester Advisory Services. Herb Freericks with Purdue. Todd Haymore with Hunton Andrews Kurth. Ned Massey, Croatan Advisors. John Milliken, the Virginia Port Authority. And Eric Sisko, Virginia International Gateway. So if you see these people at the break, some of them may be outside right now, and some of them may be arriving a little bit later, please feel free to talk to them about the Virginia Chamber and the policies that we do promote and we do advocate. I mean, it takes great policies to have a great international world trade, and that's what makes for great commerce. So I am excited that this conference has been going on for 70 years. So we've been growing, and as you can see, you all are part of what makes the international commerce work. And we need your advocacy, we need your input, and we are so happy to have you here today. And I'm delighted to be here as chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzy. About a year and a half ago, Virginia had the privilege of attracting more talent to our ranks and leadership. The Virginia Economic Development Partnership, many of the board members are here today, put a national search out, and they looked for the right person to help lead the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, something I'll talk a little bit more about when Governor Allen comes up, or he will maybe. We're very fortunate that Stephen Moret answered the call. Stephen is a dynamic leader. He has engaged the stakeholders throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. He has been a real partner to the business community. He has helped the existing business community grow and prosper. He has worked cooperatively with other economic development groups throughout the state. And we at the State Chamber have benefited from participating with him on many levels. One has been a study on national rankings and where Virginia used to be, where we are today, and where we're going. And we've been developing an economic development strategy around how to continue to improve our business climate. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Moret is here. I ask him to come forward. Please join me in welcoming the President and CEO of the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, Stephen Moret. Stephen?
Thank you, Barry. What a great pleasure it is to be here. One of my favorite events every year is the Virginia Conference on World Trade, and we couldn't be prouder to be co-hosting this event with our great partner, Barry DuVal, and the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. 2 years ago, Barry and I talked extensively as I was a candidate for this role, and one of the things we talked about was the potential for a powerful partnership to develop between VDP and the business community in the Commonwealth to drive Virginia forward. We've already seen some great results from that, Barry, in the last year and a half. We're going to see more later this year, so keep your eyes out for that. We're also happy to be co-hosting today with the Virginia Maritime Association, the Virginia Manufacturers Association, the Propeller Club, and others. A great day for the Commonwealth and for trade. Let me just talk a little bit about how important trade is to our economy and to economic growth in Virginia. We're talking about a $36 billion contributor to the Virginia economy, one of the biggest contributors to economic activity in the Commonwealth. Trade activity supports about 320,000 jobs across Virginia, a big, big impact for our great state. It gives us access to markets around the world, and there are many different ways to measure the sort of economic impacts, but one of them is the impact on wages. And what we see is that our exporters and the folks that are involved in intensive trade activity pay substantially more than those other employers in Virginia and around the country. So we want to get more companies engaged in trade, and we want the companies that are doing trade to do more of it in Virginia and more of it around the world. As Barry knows, we like comparing how we're doing to other places, sometimes to pat ourselves in the back because we're doing great, and sometimes because we need to do perhaps a little bit better. Trade's a little bit of a mixed story in that sense. Virginia, largely because we are one of the bigger states in the United States, we do relatively well in terms of our overall rank, rank number 15 in the country for export-related jobs, number 18 for export output. But if we kind of adjust that for the size of Virginia, we're not doing quite as well. If you look at us as trade activity, as exports rather, as a percent of jobs, we only rank number 38th in the country. And if we look at trade as a share of gross state product, as a share of our economy, we're number 43. And so there's a lot of room to grow. One of the things that Barry and I talk about a lot, and we talk about with Paul Grossman and many of you in this room, is what are the things that we need to do to move forward trade, to expand trade activity in the Commonwealth of Virginia. First of all, understanding why do we sort of rank where we do. Well, there are two really key reasons. One is that we have a disproportionately large share of our economy that's driven by the federal government. Obviously, very little trade activity coming out of that. And secondly, while we have an incredibly dynamic and world-class manufacturing sector, that sector is relatively small as a proportion of our economy compared to many of the other places that are bigger export states. Both of these things are things that are a central focus for VDP. How do we further diversify our economy away from the federal government, and how do we grow our great manufacturing sector to be even bigger in the future? Both of those things will help us move forward with trade activity in the Commonwealth. VDP contributes to trade in a number of different ways. I think the most visible and one of the most impactful is the great work of our International Trade Division. I just want to stop for a second. I think we have a few members of our team here in the audience. Would you guys just stand for a minute, Paul and others? Please, let's give them a round of applause. And many of you have worked with these guys. There are a lot of things that we do well in Virginia, and I think one of those that we can be most proud of in the Commonwealth of Virginia is that we have one of the best international trade teams in America, bar none. Everywhere I travel around the country, around the world even, and around the Commonwealth, I hear great things about the great work that this team is doing. They're focused really on four major areas. The first one is the Valley program. This is really our flagship intensive program where we bring about 50 firms per year through a highly customized 2-year program, and they've seen tremendous results from that. We've got our global defense program, which is really leveraging that big sector that we have in Virginia, selling to other countries around the world, about 80 firms a year. Like many other states, we have a STEP program, the State Trade and Export Promotion Program, helping small businesses get into trade activity and grow through that. One of the most common services that we provide to businesses in Virginia is market research for firms that are looking to either get into international trade, to expand their international trade efforts. We do great work. I've heard stories about the results of this market research work across Virginia. I'm so proud of the work the team does. And of course, in addition to that, supporting trade shows, trade missions, regional export programs. Our trade team is involved in every facet of trade activity in the Commonwealth. And again, we're so proud of the great work that they do. We recently completed a survey of the companies that make use of our trade programs, and we're very pleased with the results. Of course, we serve well over 300 companies per year. I'm going to talk more about that in a second. Our customer service satisfaction is off the charts. 99% of companies who have used our trade division rated either above average or excellent. In terms of international sales, the team supported almost $600 million in FY18. We're targeting $738 million this year. Trade supported jobs. A huge part of this trade work is about supporting both existing trade jobs and jobs that are and growing those jobs in the future. About 5,300 last year, targeting close to 7,000 this year. I mentioned the companies that use the program are quite satisfied. 100% extremely likely to recommend our programs to other companies, 100% extremely likely to use VDP for export assistance in the future, and 99% rated VDP's export assistance programs positively. This team does a fantastic job, as I said earlier, and we are so proud of them. The other thing I wanted to mention is that while we don't often think about it, the work that we do to both recruit companies from around the world and domestically, as well as working with existing firms on expansions, can have and does have a tremendous impact on our trade activity as well. Just not that far ago, earlier this year, Ralph Northam, our governor, announced one of the biggest manufacturing wins in Virginia history, the $3 billion, 1,100 job expansion of the Micron semiconductor chip facility in Manassas, Virginia. What you may not have heard is that it was also one of the biggest trade wins in the history of the Commonwealth. That project, when it's completed, is expected to add about $1.4 to $1.8 billion per year to our total exports in the Commonwealth, a 3 to 5% increase, a great win for Virginia. Of course, I could mention JDI, there are many others. One of the things that we're working on at VDP right now with our board's leadership is placing a more central focus on trade in our business development activities as well. So where do we go in the future? We want Virginia to be a leader in every space, right? Virginia, in my view, with all the assets, with the beauty of the Commonwealth, with the incredible talent that we have here, in my view, our goal should be to be America's premier state in every domain. And trade certainly is one of the top priorities within that space. We're going to be working, and I should say continue to work with our General Assembly leaders, with the gubernatorial administration and others to secure more resources to expand our trade programs. One of our top priorities is to expand that trade team that I talked about earlier. You remember I mentioned that we serve about 320 or so companies per year. There are a lot more companies that we would like to serve. We're just capacity constrained. So one of the things we're looking to do is to secure additional resources to grow those programs. The other thing we're looking at doing is how do we cultivate more imports in the Commonwealth? We often think of trade just from an export perspective, but there's an awful lot of businesses in Virginia that get a lot of value out of import activity as well. And so one of the things we're going to be looking at with greater intensity, working with the Virginia Maritime Association, the Port of Virginia, and others, is how can we also cultivate more imports in the Commonwealth of Virginia? And then finally, how can we better leverage our business development efforts to both secure more projects that entail significant exports and imports, as well as to support expansions of those that are already here. As you can see, we have a lot to be proud of when we think about trade in Virginia, but we also have a lot of room to grow. I want to thank all of you for all of the great work that you do. I want to thank you so much for your support of our great international trade team. And I just have to tell you, we're so excited about what is possible and where we can go in the Commonwealth, working together with the Virginia Chamber, the Virginia Maritime Association, the Manufacturers Association, the Port of Virginia, and all the great partners that are working together to cultivate trade in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you all very much. Great to be with you.